Hello friends, welcome to Tech Academy. We are learning Angular, and in today's session we will be discussing some core ingredients of Angular application. Before going to that, I would like to thank Mr. Vaibhav for commenting on my posts. And Vaibhav, as you asked, we will be definitely dealing with a real-time application. At this point of time, I am thinking to have a mini application for our demo purpose, which is a resemblance of a phone pay application. So we will be working on a phone pay application to understand how these components, how these things in Angular are actually behaving. Okay, now let's get started. Today, as I told, we will be discussing on some core ingredients of Angular application. Let's start understanding the first ingredient, which is directives. One of the most important package in Angular. Before understanding directive, right, we have to understand one more keyword, which is called as a decorator. Before going into directives, we have to understand one keyword, which is decorator. Okay, let us try to understand the keyword decorator. To understand decorator, let us take a use case. I am taking three situations: person A, person B, and person C. Person A is hosting first birthday of his kid. Person B is hosting first anniversary, and person C is getting married. Now, in these three different situations, in these three different events, the decoration of events tells us that, oh, okay, this is a marriage event. I cannot put a placard saying that happy birthday at marriage event. I cannot put a placard happy birthday at anniversary as well. I cannot put a placard happy anniversary or happy marriage at birthday event. So the decoration here tells us what this event is all about. Same is the case with decorator. A decorator tells the Angular what package are we dealing with. So as we told, right, there are a few core ingredients in Angular. We can denote them as packages. For example, decorative package, component package, so on and so forth. So this decorator tells what sort of package we are using. Okay, hope this is good to go with. Let us try to understand what directive is. Let us go to our old school again, where we discussed about DOM and index.html, which is my first entry point to the DOM. Now, any package that comes next within the DOM actually adds or modifies the behavior of this DOM component. So as per our old school, we understood that there is an index.html which is residing in the DOM component, and I am now adding few more packages to the DOM component, which has the capacity to add or modify the existing behavior of this DOM component. Putting this into sentence, we can say that first, directives are collection of classes. A class means where the actual some code is being residing, okay, to tell the behavior of this object, how it has to behave. Now, what does this collection of classes does? this collection of classes adds or modifies the behavior. Good. So directives are collection of classes which adds or modifies the behavior. But what behavior does it modifies? Where is the behavior that is getting modified is the elements of a template. So friends, directives are collection of classes which has the capacity to add or modify the behavior. Behavior of what? Of the elements within a template. Okay, so this is the definition of directives. How many types of directives do we have? We have three types of directives. First is component, second is structural, and the third is attribute. Okay, so directives are collection of classes which adds or modifies the behavior of elements of a template within a template, and they are divided into three. First is component, structural, and attribute. So component is also collection of classes which adds or modifies the behavior. Now the question is, does this adds or modifies the behavior of elements of a template? The answer is yes, but here the template is about user interface. In directive, the template means the entire component, entire package. Okay, so it can be a component, it can be a structural component, it can be an attribute, or it can be something else as per the behavior of the directive that we are writing. Okay, so it is everything that we are talking, but component is specific to user interface. So component is specific to HTML. Okay, now what do you mean by structural directive? So a structural directive is also a collection of classes that adds or modifies the behavior of what? Here, structural means we are now modifying the structure of the element. So for example, if I want to show a red button and a green button based on some conditions. Okay, here when I want to show red button if it is false, a green button if it is true, then I am modifying the behavior of certain UI elements within the template, right? So these are structural behavior. In this case, I will be using ng if. ng stands for Angular, if stands for if statement. Now, suppose I want to show a list of elements within my DOM object, within my component, then I will be using ng for iteration, to iterate each row, first row, second row, third row, fourth row. So I am using certain Angular inbuilt functionalities, right? So these inbuilt functionalities tells us how the behavior of elements can be changed using structural directive. Now the last one, attribute. Actually, as software engineer, we just tell that okay, this is what the attribute is and how the behavior of attribute should be like this based on these conditions, and some stories we cook up, right? Let us try to understand what actually an attribute is. For that, let us take a very simple use case. Okay, if for a layman who is new to software industry, right, let us try to help him understand what an attribute is, and then we will discuss on the rest of our session. Okay, I'm assuming that you know minimum of HTML. Okay, I'm just writing one HTML syntax. Input type equals to text, placeholder equals to enter name, class equals to some ABC class, style equals to some styling properties like padding 10 pixel. I'll close this tag. To us, we all know this is a simple HTML tag which generates a text box in my browser with enter name as initial placeholder with some red color or green color or orange color background as per this class rules, and then as per the style the padding will be 10 pixels across all directions. Okay, now this is an HTML tag. Perfect. Do you know what we call this? Type, placeholder, class, style, so on and so forth. These are called as attributes. For a button, I can say class equals to and style equals to, then here I can say click me, and then I can close this button, right? This specific tag of a button. Or instead of text, if I am putting this as button, okay, so button will not have a placeholder tag. So this is these words, these things which makes the behavior of this element to behave as it is designed for is called attribute. Same is the case in our Angular. An attribute specifies what types of styles you want to apply, what type of classes that I have to taken care of. For example, ng class, Angular class, Angular style, or some other properties which makes the element to behave or modify. Okay, so this is all about directive component, structural directive, and attribute directive. Before closing this session, let us reiterate what we discussed today. Okay, and one of the most important interview question. So directive is first collection of classes. Second, has the capability to add or modify the behavior. Here the behavior is all about element of a template. Now this directive is divided into three. The first one is component, structural, and attribute. Component is collection of classes. It has add or modify capability, but for user interface, UI specific. Structural is also collection of classes which has the capability to add or modify the behavior using some inbuilt functions. And those, for example, of them are Angular if statement and Angular for statement. Attribute is also a collection of classes which has the capability to add or modify the behavior. Here the behavior is with respect to Angular class or Angular styles. Example. So this is all about directive and components. Next session we will be learning about modules or services. What actually I'm thinking is, let us stop discussion here. Based on the project that we will be doing, within that we can still analyze and understand the core ingredients of Angular. Okay, so what I'm thinking is, the next session we will be scaffolding Angular. We will be creating the Angular application, our very first Angular application, and then we will try to understand what actually happened and what will happen if we create an Angular application. Before creating means once I give a command, right, what actually is happening inside, and once that inside is done, what actually is happened outside. So just tune with me. In next session we will be scaffolding our very first Angular application. Till then, thank you. Keep watching. Subscribe, like and share. Jai Hind.